Welcome back to the next iteration of the why and the how. So today we are diving into what I would call the MVPs of Jamf's macOS security stack. These are the features that make the biggest difference when you're defending a modern Apple fleet. So we're going to be talking behavior analytics, macOS telemetry, and our AI assistant. So these are free capabilities that will move you from guessing to actually knowing what's happening on your Macs.
Yeah, Jamf Protect can do a lot of things. So we won't go through it all today, I think, Adam. But like you said, focus on some specific portions of it. I'll be jumping into a bit of the live demo side, showing you around the admin portions, as well as the end user experience of it, because I think it's pretty fun to see Protect actually working in action on an end user's device. Hopefully, nothing risky is happening with devices in your organization, but need to be realistic. It can happen, so it's good to know what it would look like to defend against that.
Yeah, awesome. Live demos always fun. And I guess before we jump into that fun stuff, maybe if I just frame the problem properly, because this is where almost every organization gets tripped up, because macOS is incredibly secure by design, right? Apple have built one of, if not the strongest platform security models in the industry. But a lot of organizations are still potentially trying to secure their Macs with tooling that was built for Windows. And when you do that, you become blind to stuff that actually matters on macOS. So you might miss some subtle behavioral changes, or miss when something spawns a strange child process, or you might miss unexpected persistence that's being created. So none of these are obvious if the tooling doesn't understand how macOS behaves in a normal environment. And we've seen it firsthand, right? It's often the tooling that they're using isn't necessarily bad. It's just not macOS native. So this is why this is the point of this episode. And we're trying to show you what matters and how Jamf helps you with that. Because if you want real Apple security, then you're going to need these three things. You're going to need the behavioral insight. You're going to need macOS native security and platform aware guidance. So let's start with behavior analytics. Now, arguably very important piece. Modern macOS attacks rarely show up as known malicious files. They show up as patterns. So a binary doing something it has no business doing, a launch agent that keeps recreating itself, a process modifying keychain, which is operating out of normal behavior. So attackers aren't relying on hashes anymore. We're seeing they're relying on living off the land techniques and subtle deviation. So if your tooling only understands signatures or known indicators, then it's basically flying blind. So let's have a look at this and see how we can help you set this up within the console.
Yep, let's jump into Jamf Protect and have a quick look. So as you mentioned, Adam, our default Jamf managed analytics detect suspicious user and system activity that you'd otherwise be unaware of. These are mapped against the MITRE ATT&CK framework. If I go to persistence, let me find launch daemons. This is just one example where we give you a summary of what launch daemons are, as well as contextual items of what this analytic is actually monitoring for. These are all tagged as well, like I said earlier, and mapped against the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So the default analytics are automatically a part of your company default plan. This is here in everyone's Jamf Protect environment right out the gate as well. You can see the default analytics set is already included there. This default plan, of course, also contains our threat prevention agent, which is there to automatically remediate against known threats. This is built by our Threat Labs team. But the focus here is analytics. So let me show you an alert for one of our analytics that's been triggered. So as an example, our launch daemon analytic, which I showed earlier, has been triggered on a device. Here I get more concise details of what's actually occurred, as well as some recommended remediation options. I can even view the direct process events that occurred, files that were included, binaries, and even users. So if you have a dedicated security team, they'll be able to assess what has occurred here and decide if an additional remediation step would be needed for this particular launch daemon. Lots of applications use launch daemons, so by nature, they're not all malicious. But that's why analytics give us a further insight into investigating what's occurred and how on our Mac devices. You can even build custom analytics. So if we go to all analytics and view custom, I've built some that can, for example, monitor for different activities that are tied with Jamf management. For example, I can see if a user has actually removed our Jamf management framework from their device. This will trigger an analytic that our security teams would be immediately made aware of. So there's a lot of custom workflows and ways that you can use analytics as well, even tying them to smart groups within Jamf Pro. So definitely worth looking into.
Yeah, no, I must admit, analytics is a personal favorite of mine in terms of the different ways customers are using it and some of the results they've had from it. Now, this kind of behavior detection is great, but obviously, if something's happened and you need to investigate properly, then you're going to need to follow the entire thread. You're going to need more evidence and context. And this is where telemetry then becomes essential, because telemetry is kind of like the backbone of any real threat investigation. And of course, there are other use cases for telemetry as well. But on macOS especially, you want to know if something has happened, which files were touched, which processes spawned, and whether there were any like weird network calls. So you can then sort of understand exactly what has happened on this device and whether further action is required. Now, our approach is to collect the signals that a macOS specialist or security team actually needs, and then to structure them in a way that makes sense for the platform that you're using. So no having to reinvent the wheel, just clean native event data fed into your SIEM solution, which then does all of the magic that whichever SIEM you might be using will deliver for you. So let's have a look at what we can do with our telemetry feature as a demo now, Elmo.
Luckily, telemetry data is super easy to get started with. Now, I've already got one pre-created, but let's build one together. When we choose Create Telemetry, we can give this a name, but all it is a bit of a checkbox exercise. We can choose what we want logging for, from anything like applications and processes to user, persistence information, even hardware and volume information. We can also get detailed information on Apple security. So that includes X Protect or things that Apple's gatekeeper has, for example, been able to identify. If we want, we can also choose advanced logging for file hashes and even collect diagnostic and crash, as well as performance information from our Mac devices. The last option is a simple log file collection. I'll show you the one that I have pre-built here. Here, I've also chosen to add a jamf.log simple log file collection. You can add as many of these as you actually like. So if there's a specific location or log file that you'd want to include in the telemetry information that we collect through Protect, you're able to do that here. Let's jump into my actions. And in my default actions, you'll see I've actually configured multiple data endpoints. You can add multiple so that you can choose if you want to have telemetry and log data sent to a single endpoint. This could be through a log file or HTTP. So you can send different information to different locations. I have Splunk, Elastic, all integrated here at the same time, sending data to multiple different endpoints so that my security teams can look at it in the platform that they're used to breaking this information down in. So really, really powerful to get all of this detailed Mac-specific information from Apple endpoint APIs directly into our SIEM solutions. Let me show you a bit of what it still looks like on the SIEM dashboard side. So if you're a security team member who is an expert in breaking down information within a SIEM, then this will be exactly what you're looking for. Here's just an example of Splunk and Microsoft Sentinel. This is looking at the telemetry data that we just configured and have sent to these SIEM solutions. This just gives you an idea of the kind of dashboards that you can build based off of the native Mac telemetry that we're pulling through Protect. Now, I'm not necessarily an expert in breaking down this information, but there are a lot of teams that would love to have this amount of data to go through. It really paints a full picture for possible malicious events that have occurred on macOS devices within your fleet, or perhaps gives a little bit more detailed information on perhaps suspicious user activity even within your fleet. So you really don't want to be missing out on this kind of data that our telemetry feature provides.
Yeah, I think I really love our telemetry feature because it just brings Mac in line and probably even beyond any other endpoint that you already have within the organization regarding the capabilities and the visibility that it provides you. And yeah, again, really keen to hear more if anyone is listening to this, watching this, and doing something interesting with telemetry. Um, would love to hear more and learn more from you about that. So I guess now we move on to the final challenge, right? Even when you as an organization, your team, you have all of this data, it can be difficult to sometimes interpret it, especially if you have someone in your team that is new to macOS or your SOC isn't used to Apple platforms. So that is one of the reasons and drivers behind our AI assistant. And with AI assistant now being able to help you with investigations and understanding threat alerts or anything that might be looking a little bit suspicious to you on a Mac. So what it does really well, the AI assistant, is it explains what is happening in plain human language. And then it also allows you to accelerate your investigation by guiding you through what next steps are recommended. So even for experienced analysts, it will speed up the process massively.
Yeah, exactly that, Adam. And I thought I'd bring this up just to visualize it. Here's a quick sneak peek on how you could utilize our AI system going forward. Here's a alert from an analytic that was caught by Protect. And I'm just going to ask it, hey, what happened here? Protect is going to actually look at the information of this specific alert and help me break it down. So it's going to give me an alert summary as well as a risk assessment on this particular event. But it's going to give next steps. So it's going to allow me to search telemetry for process executions before and after this specific touch command. Now, I, as the admin, can choose to interact with this. I'm going to do that. And now it's going to look through that telemetry data that we configured and actually looked at earlier. So here we'll see some critical discoveries around malware installation chains, a timeline, further key malicious indicators of this particular event. And it's going to lastly recommend some options to actually remediate against this particular threat. So I'm going to choose to remove the malicious launch agent and file. How does this occur? Well, because our tools, our Jamf Protect and Pro, can actually communicate with one another. They can talk to one another through our APIs. Our AI assistant is also built to be cross-platform. It does not live just within Jamf Protect or Jamf Pro. You can actually use it across our products going forward. So this is a comprehensive look at what our AI assistant will be able to do. Do note this is still in beta. As of recording this, it's currently in beta for our US customers only, but we are working hard to get it as soon as possible to our other regions. It's really going to open up a huge possibility for customers to get a better understanding of the security events and the threat landscape on their macOS devices.
Yeah, perfect. I think really that completes this quite nice triangle that we presented here, right? So the analytics, the behavior analysis, that gives you the initial signal. Maybe something isn't quite right here. Then telemetry gives you the evidence to justify that initial feeling or behavior, whether it is or isn't a security risk or even just something not quite right happening on the Mac. And then AI assistant gives you the clarity. So you have that kind of complete picture to fully understand what's actually happening. And yeah, hopefully what these will do is obviously they'll improve the security posture, but actually the main goal here is to make the lives of our admins easier. You're not having to waste as much time going through data to do these investigations. You get a clear, immediate understanding. This is what's happened. This is what you need to do about it, if anything at all. That concludes this episode of the why and the how. Hopefully that was a fun episode for you all, having a little bit more of a deeper dive into some of the product and the instances that we have. I think for our next session, I'm not 100% sure what topic we are covering next, but what I do know is that our Threat Labs team has a lot of very interesting, very relevant research that is due to be published over the coming weeks. So do keep an eye out on the Jamf Threat Labs blog for the latest and greatest from that team.
Yeah, sounds good to me. That's probably the last thing that we didn't mention about Protect today is the team behind it all. So that would be probably pretty cool to bring them in maybe on our next call and have them speak for themselves in terms of how they're building Protect and a lot of the cool stuff that they're finding as well in the Apple security landscape overall. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Excellent. Thanks, Elmo.
See you, Adam.